Well, greetings, people of the internet. I'm back. And today we're going to cover my solar systems. You can see behind me, there have been some changes. So let's go see what those changes were. Well, even though the table served me well, it was time to get this stuff properly mounted. Now, the batteries are going to stay where they are on that shelving unit until I need more batteries. But when you disconnect the battery leads, just keep in mind that battery is live. So I taped all the ends just so I didn't have a short circuit. Now, the next thing to do, of course, is remove all the components from this board, including the wires and switches. And pretty soon I'll be lifting this beast off the table, the big white beast there, and putting it in a safe location, because I got to get everything off of this sheet of plywood in order to cut this sheet of plywood up and place it on the wall behind where that lamp is, because that's where the power center is going to go. Now, initially I was going to place that in my server room, but thinking about it, sleeping on it, there's just really not enough room in there, and it's easier for me to just run a 15 gauge, or a 10 gauge power cord to that panel into my server room than it is to try and put everything in the server room and then fight for space. So rest of it now is just a matter of disassembling everything I have here on this board, and then mounting the board on the wall and figuring out where exactly I'm going to mount everything. And there you go, the board is bare. I've got some stuff under this table I had to move out of the way. And then we're going to be saying goodbye to the table, or goodbye to the plywood, and then we'll be saying goodbye to the table. Goodbye, table. So here's the power wall as it sits right now. As you can see, we've got the grow watt mounted on the wall. Next to it, I've got a Victron Energy MPPT 15035 solar charge controller. And then over here I have a transfer switch. Now you're probably wondering why I have a transfer switch when I have the grow watt. Well, the grow watt has got all of this stuff, the here, and another addition to my wall here is a 3,000 watt 24 volt inverter. All three of these items are built into the grow watt. So, seeing as this is my trial setup for solar, I want to see what equipment I like better. Do I like the all-in-one unit, the grow watt, which I've had for quite some time now, or do I prefer individual components like the Victron solar charge controller, the transfer switch, and the inverter? And the beauty of this is you'll see here as I've wired all this stuff is wired to the same solar panels and to the same battery bank. We'll go down here and identify each one of these components, but I do have 2 or 3 different sets of solar panels out there now, as you'll see here shortly. So I can either combine them all into one connection, or I can separate them and run one set of solar panels to my grow watt and one set of panels to my Victron. Either or. I think what I'll do is I'll run one set of panels to my grow watt, one set of panels to my Victron, and then they can both charge the same battery bank, which is down here. Now this little device on the wall that's blinking is part of my energy monitoring. My shunt is right next to it. This is one of those $80, $90 shunts you get on Amazon. They're Chinese made. I'll show you the layout on the desk. So both my negative connections from my battery and from my charge controllers come into the negative side of the shunt. That measures the amount of electricity coming through and being sucked out of the batteries. And then this black cable comes all the way down, loops around, and comes here to the negative bus bar, which is colored black. Then I have a set of switches. This switch controls the power from the positive bus bar and the battery bank up to my charge controller. This one goes over here and controls the power going to my grow watt solar charge controller inverter. And you can see I've got a resistor down here that is to pre-charge the grow watt before I turn it on. There's a momentary contact switch there. My negative and positive bus bars right here. And then I've got a couple of switches that allow me to further isolate. I have two battery banks. So both of these switches are fused. They allow me to isolate each battery bank, turn them off if I need to do maintenance on one while keeping the other one running. And then I have two battery banks down here. One I built with cells from EEL battery, and the other one I built from ripping apart my Redodo 12 volt and my Ampere Time 12 volt batteries, combining them into a 24 volt 100 amp hour pack. That is the battery controller right there. The controls charging and discharging the battery, the BMS. Then over here I've got a JK BMS on this battery string. And then I've ordered another 24 volt lithium iron phosphate battery. That's going to go down here on the bottom shelf. So I'll have a total of 3 battery banks that I can then charge from either this system over here on the right or from this system over here on the left. So I've got the best of both worlds. And then what I've done further is I brought a 12-2 cable down and I put that into a 4-gang outlet. And then below that I'm going to have another 4-gang outlet. You can see I've already got the wire run for it. I'm just waiting on the receptacles of the cover. And that 4-gang outlet is going to have one of these receptacle that also has USB power connectors out on it. So that gives you an idea of the unit itself. It's UL listed. These I got 2 of these for $27 on Amazon. And their brand is the ELE GRP brand. And those will allow me then to plug USB items in to the solar. Remember, the whole idea of doing this thing was to have an emergency. Well, ideally this will run my entire studio, this setup I have, when I get enough panels and batteries. The plan was it'll run my studio, including all my server rack components. So my main PC pulls about 250 watts. My rack pulls about 700 to 1100 watts, depending on what all I've got running. The idea was to power them all off of this, and then in the event we had a power failure, we could run extension cords in here to these plugs for emergency power, whether that be for heat, an air conditioner, a lamp. We want to brew a cup of coffee. We want to run a refrigerator or keep some frozen food frozen. So as long as we have solar, we'll be able to then keep our battery bank charged. And as I've said before, the most expensive part of this whole setup is the battery bank. That's where your majority of your money is going to be set. Keep in mind, these components, that one right there was $320 all by itself. That's another $100. That's another $300 right there. So there's $700 in those 3 components. That's not including the wire, the switches, the fusing, the bus bars, the shunt. Now those 3 items are built into this grow watt right here, and that grow watt's about $700, or was at the time of making this video. So for most people, that's going to be the best way to go. You know, I like to play with stuff, so I'm going with the individual components as well. I really like the Victron equipment, and, you know, I just want to see how it would compare to an all-in-one unit. So you can see why I've been busy for the past month, right? Just on the inside stuff. But what I haven't shown you now is the outside stuff, because there's 2 pieces to this puzzle, right? So let's go outside and take a look what I did out there. So for those of you that don't know, we have a a deer that our neighbors adopted. Its mother got killed on the side of the road, so they picked it up and brought it home with them. I don't recommend that. Deers are wild animals, and while they're nice, this deer is a buck, and males they can be nice and friendly, but they can also be destructive and, that kind of stuff. So anyway, here we are disassembling the solar panels, which I basically leaned up against a set of deck chairs or lawn chairs. And it served me well. It gave me an idea of how the panels need to be positioned and where they need to be facing and how all the wiring worked and all that. And but it was time to clear the area, mow the grass. As you can see, it's gotten long, and get ready for the solar panel mounts that I bought. Now, I bought two different types. I bought a cheapy, creepy $50, $60 Chinese setup, and then I bought a more expensive, creepy, cheapy Chinese setup. And you'll see them both here as we proceed on. So basically, the first thing we had to do was clear all the area, mow the grass, and, just do a general cleanup. I like having a clean work area before you start and get all your tools out there. And, you see I have a table out there so I can do work on that. I don't have to bend over or work off the ground all the time. So do yourself a favor, buy yourself a $40 Walmart table. So here's after we had mowed the grass. Now, this is the cheapy creepy frame. It's basically a couple of pieces of aluminum you strap onto two panels. These are 200-watt panels, and then you put these angle iron brackets on, and they'll hold it at whatever angle you want. But instead of the panels going vertically like they are now, you'll see that I end up turning them horizontally because that's how they're designed to mount. So right now it's just a matter of getting the mounts in there, getting the screws on them. Now at this point I had to go help the spouse with some strimmer string, and then I came back to my task. And you probably saw our cat that also is not our cat. We call him Tom because he's a male tomcat. And he just hangs around and we feed him. He's a friendly guy. But he belongs to probably everybody out here feeds him. So anyway, here I was putting the angle iron on this bracket. I was not impressed. These brackets are cheap. You get what you pay for. But having had no experience with solar panel brackets before, I didn't know which one I wanted to buy. And now I know it won't be these moving forward. They're okay if you're RVing or camping or something of that sort. They would probably work fine for that environment, for a temporary setup. But for a more permanent setup like we're going for, as you can see, these are just they're okay. They mounted at the right angle for you, and they're okay. But now it's time to bring out the big guys. So here we go. These are, I think I paid $139 a piece for each one of these mounts. I got two of these. They'll hold 4 panels. Actually, they will hold 5 100-watt panels. But you don't know this until you build it and start putting your panels on it. This is all made out of the channel that the electricians use. I forget the name of it. And it's very, very, nuts and bolts, very sturdy when you put it together. I already had built the frame, and now here I am putting the horizontal bars across so that you can then have something to lay the panels on. So if you've never done it before, it's kind of intimidating, but once you do the basics, you can start figuring it out. And I learned I should have assembled those rods ahead of time, the long horizontal brackets. That should have been the first thing I put together. And we're also trying to use with Chinese English instructions, and sometimes they leave steps out. You know how that goes. But these brackets are sturdy. Eventually what I'll do is I will pour some footings, concrete footings, into the ground. and then put some bolts in, and these will bolt to those concrete footings in the ground. That is probably where the panels are going to stay, because we can't plant any trees. I am standing directly over one of our septic fields. The other one is the brown patch behind me. That's another septic field. So we can't really plant any trees or anything in here. So even though I don't necessarily like the idea of the solar panels at the front of the house, it is what it is. So there you go. I got it built. It's sturdy. I even put my 220 pounds of weight on it. And then it was time to start hooking up some panels and seeing how easy those were. And let me tell you, and it's racked a little bit right here. It's not level. That's not the point. The point was to get it set up so I could get my panels on and start collecting energy. And so these are my Renogy 100 watt panels, and I went ahead and got some clamps as well. Some of those Irwin quick clamps to hold the panels on there, and the spouse is trying to help me as well. And then basically you slide these little channel locks in there for this channel, and it very simply hooks them up and holds them in there securely. So the only other thing now is to get them secured to the ground. And it is spring, and we're due for some spring storms. But I'll just wait until we get a really strong wind and have it flip it over, and then worried that it broke the panels, and then I'll fix it. And here came my little friend to visit me. Well, it wasn't really to visit me, it was to annoy me. And although he's a friendly deer, when you're trying to get work done, it can be a bit annoying. So I shoot him off of me and started hanging my third panel, and all of a sudden the deer decided it was a good idea to come and eat the wires on the solar panels. Now, he can't do any damage to them. They're pretty well hardcore, but I didn't want him getting the idea that that was okay to eat them. So I kept having to come back there and shoo him away. And he decided he wanted to box me. Well, this is what happens with male deers. They get aggressive if you get aggressive. So be mindful. And I did fall down. I tripped over the wire and fell down. So the deer got his revenge. And you can see he just follows you around like a puppy dog. But, you know, they are destructive. They like to eat trees. They eat certain flowers. But I don't think he'll be chewing through these solar wires. If he does, he's going to get a heck of a shock. But anyway, it was a beautiful day to do this. It was partly sunny. And let me tell you, these racks I cannot say enough good things about. And the deer and I are still friends, but he just needs to learn to give me my space. And I did get them mounted. They're secure. They're not secured to the ground. And they are producing power. Remarkably, they're producing a lot more power than I thought they would, just by getting them off the ground and tilting them the right direction. I'm getting the full, those are 4 panels. I'm getting nearly 400 watts out of those panels every day. So in between defending my life from a crazed deer and tripping over electrical cables, I managed, in spite of all that, to get those panels mounted. Well, at least 6 of the 10 panels I have mounted. So 2 of the panels I mounted on that, 2-panel mount, and then 4 more I mounted on the new mount that I bought. I think I paid like $169 for that mount. And it turns out it'll hold 5 panels each, which is pretty good, because that means I'll be able to put all my panels out there collecting electricity from the sun. Now, keep in mind, folks, none of this is cheap. I have spent literally thousands of dollars. The most expensive part of this are the batteries, and then the solar panels in that order. And then all the other equipment is just, you buy it as you can afford it, like I've done. The goal is to make my studio go solar. Everything in here I want to run off solar and batteries and only go onto the grid when there's an emergency. But not only that, it serves as my backup power source for the house in the event of a grid emergency, i.e. a power failure. So you have to look at it as a long-term investment as well. But anybody who tells you solar is cheap and the payback is quick, you probably ought to just run from those people and go do a little research on your own, because it is not and it is not. It just depends on how you do it. You know me, I'm the king of cheap. I like to do it at my pace, and I like to play with this stuff. That way I get a great understanding of how it all works. So if you're so inclined, you might find these videos educational on that aspect. And keep in mind, I'm not a professional. Don't take my advice when you're hooking up your battery cables as to what size wire or fuses. You need to go do all that research on your own and find out, because, I don't want to give you bad advice. You're dealing with electricity here, and DC is different than AC. AC pulses, it's alternating current. It goes up and down like this. And there's a more likely chance you'll survive a shock from AC than DC, because DC doesn't let go. There is no interruption of the current while it goes back into the negative. Keep that in mind. Now, the voltages I'm dealing with, 24 volts, you're not going to get a shock, but you will get an incredibly large spark. And on a device like a battery that's capable of delivering 100 amps, that's a lot of current. It can melt wires, it can cause things to smoke and get hot, and other things that are near it to then catch on fire. So keep that in mind. This is not child's play you're dealing with here. This is electricity, and it can be dangerous. So if you're too stupid to tie your own shoes, then I would avoid this altogether. But it's been a lot of fun. And the payback, even though it's slow, I know this will end up making me money in the long run. So what could be better for the king of cheap? Anyway, we hope you found the video entertaining and informative as always. Give us a thumbs up down below if you liked it. Subscribe if you're not already a subscriber. And click that notification bell to be notified of new videos when they come out. Donate if you're so inclined, PayPal, Patreon, or become a YouTube Premium member, and you can help everybody that way. It's easy peasy. Please come back and see us again, and don't forget we'll see all of you on the other side.